Hi, it's Saturday, May 14th, 2016. My second video today, and this video is quite interesting in my opinion. I'm going to be talking about the Bank of England banknote, mainly because, you know, it's written here on top of the Bank of England banknote. This is a 20-pound banknote or 20-pound bill. If you're an American, you say bill. It says, "I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of 20 pounds. So I've made a phone call before to the press office at the Bank of England, and I asked them, what does this entitle me to? If I come to the cashier at the Bank of England, what will they give to me, if I present this note to them? And they said, oh, this just means that you get a new note if this one gets damaged. And then I thought, if that's the case, why don't they just say, you will get a new note if this one is damaged? But they don't. Basically, it's a promissory note. And you were able to, in the past, before, the war, I guess, 1914 war, First World War, you could go to the Bank of England with a £1 note or a £5 note. I don't think they had 20-pound notes. And you present it to them, and they give you £5 in sovereigns. One gold sovereign was £1. So that's what they had to give you. Nowadays, one gold sovereign is still legally £1, but it's worth, it costs about £220 to buy one. So the other question I asked someone, actually through Twitter, because the Bank of England last year had something on Twitter about the banknotes, and I asked the lady that was doing the twittering for the Bank of England, and said, what is it backed by then, if you give us a new note and if you give a promise? And she said, well, the Bank of England note used to be backed by gold, but now it's got backed by government debt, which they basically can borrow and create out of thin air. We've seen, in the last 8-9 years how much debt has been created. So yeah, so this is backed by debt, government debt. I mean, if I try to go to the Bank of England and get 20 pounds in gilts, which are the equivalent of US treasuries here in the UK, I don't think they give me 20 pounds in gilts, which is UK debt. So with that in mind, I've also liked to talk about an interesting anecdote. It could be true or not. And it's from a book written by John Reeves, and it's called The Rothschilds, The Financial Rulers of Nations. And yeah, this book was written in 1887, so it's not a new book. It's an old book from the 19th century. And on page 182 is a section about Nathan Meyer Rothschild, who was the London Rothschild, the man that really built the Rothschilds in London, Nathan Meyer. So I will quote from the book. It'll take a little while to read this, but I think it's really interesting. You'll find this interesting. This story is so characteristic of the man that its authenticity seems undeniable. But the same cannot be said of the following anecdote, which is evidently due to the fertile brain of some imaginative writer. The very minuteness of detail and the dramatic completeness of the narrative are enough to make one suspicious of its genuineness. So, page 183 now. The elements of improbability are too prominent and manifest to fail to strike the reader. The story runs that the bank mortally offended Nathan Meyer by refusing to discount a bill drawn upon him for a large amount by his brother Anselm of Frankfurt. The bank had haughtily replied that discounted only their own bills and not those of private persons, but they had to deal with one stronger even than the bank. "Private persons!" exclaimed Rothschild, when the fact was reported to him. "Private persons! I will make these gentlemen feel what sort of private persons we are." 3 weeks afterwards, Nathan Meyer, who had employed the interval in collecting all the banknotes he could procure in England and on the continent, presented himself at the bank as soon as it was opened. He drew upon his pocketbook a £5 note, and the clerk or Clark, depending if you're in the UK or the US, naturally counted out 5 sovereigns. At the same time, looking with great astonishment at Rothschild. It seemed strange that he should trouble himself for such a trifle. He, however, examined the coins carefully one by one and put them in a little canvas bag, then drawing out another note, a third, a fourth, a 10th, a 100th. He kept demanding change, basically specie, gold coins, for his notes, never placing the money in his bag without first scrupulously examining the pieces. In some cases, he would try them in the balance, as he observed the law gave him the right to do. The first pocketbook being emptied and the first bag filled, he passed them to his clerk and received a second supply of notes, thus continuing to drain the bank of its gold till the doors were closed. He had spent 7 hours in changing £21,000, but as he had 9 of his employees engaged in the same manner, it resulted that the bank had lost £210,000 from its gold reserves of gold. So it continues here, but it just it just shows you, that what a Bank of England note really should be. It's basically, a check or a promissory note written to anyone who possesses it. That's why the bearer on demand. So, I mean, if any of you still have checkbooks, some people still do. Not here in the UK, we don't use checks that much anymore. I still have one. Just look at it. It's just like a check when you pay and you put the person's name, because it's not, you don't pay the bearer, you pay someone and you put the amount and the date. And then that person, goes to the bank, deposits the check, and then the money is eventually cleared into his account. If there's insufficient funds in the person who wrote the check account, that check will bounce. So, yeah, the Bank of England note is like a check, but it doesn't pay you anything. You just get a new note. So that's a strange situation. Seems irrational to me. I'm not sure how long the Bank of England will keep that promise there. They could take it off. But I thought the Rothschild story was quite interesting. So yeah, the Rothschilds, The Financial Rulers of Nations by John Reeves. Interesting book to read. Some interesting stories in there. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Share it with friends. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. Take care. Bye.